let's start with a pop quiz while people are still coming in, I hope. How many AI talks are there today? Anyone wants to take a guess? 10,000? I don't think there's 1,000 talks today in this event, but if you trust the program, there's 9. If you go into any session, most likely all of them. Ours is going to be about AI, but let's talk about why we bother talking about AI if everyone's also doing it. So he's Benoît. He is data science lead at AppTweak. So you get to hear about AI from someone who works in data science, not just in marketing.
And he's Simon, our very own head of ASO, and here to make sure that we don't say anything wrong about what's actually factually in the store.
And so if you don't know our company, AppTweak, AppTweak is an App Store marketing platform, which means that we deal in App Store optimization, but also in Apple Ads, review management, and quite a few things, market intelligence, of course. So that's my commercial plug for the day. Why we're going to talk about AI? Because we've been building AI features for a little while. It's not always top of mind from our clients, but the latest addition is our ad agent for Apple Ads, which we will talk about a little. But there's been stuff going on for a while. And in fact, was anyone attending APS when it was still called APS Berlin 3 years ago? Anyone in the room? Oh, a couple, that's nice. Welcome back. So 3 years ago, we had not Benoît, but Jonathan, also from the data science lead team. And we were talking about reverse engineering the App Store, which was something done with AI. But back then, we didn't say AI because ChatGPT was a thing that few people know about. We were not using it for what we did. And ever since, we've basically felt like hipsters because we get to say, we did AI before it was cool. A couple years ago in London, Benoît was with me that time, and we started talking about AI for reviews, for instance. That's actually the last presentation where we were quite clear on using AI. And we were talking about ChatGPT in terms that were quite funny because, as you can see, we did not like ChatGPT all that much back then. And 2 years later, we have to admit it's a bit different now, and that's what we want to talk about today. So what we're actually going to talk about is we're going to take the time for an intro because AI is a term that's being thrown around for everything, and having a data scientist is nice to actually talk about what technology do we actually mean when we say AI. Then I'll also take the time to speak about what AI is doing in the app stores at the moment, because you hear a lot of theories, but it's nice to look at what's happening. And then we'll also talk about what you guys can do using AI for ASO, for Apple Ads, for all the App Store marketing challenges when you don't necessarily want to wait on app stores to do it for you. So, Benoît, if you don't mind, I'll let you tell us what AI actually is.
I don't mind at all. So yeah, as Simon was saying, we have 9 or 9+ talks related to AI today. And so far, I haven't seen one where AI is properly introduced. And I feel like it can bring some confusion because AI now means many things. So as the data scientist in the room, I'm going to give an introduction. I want to explain what it is. I hope I'm not going to bore you to death, but let's give it a go. So we'll start with what AI was. So let's imagine we are in APS 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and you attended an AI talk. What you would see is mostly data science or machine learning. First example that comes to mind, the buzzword back then was deep learning. Deep learning is basically using neural networks, not a buzzword back then, for doing regression or classification. And a concrete example for that is that you can, for instance, this is in our platform, you can predict the downloads or revenues of an app, looking at the signals, you can train your model and then do prediction. So this was a good example of AI. What else can you do? You can also analyze text using what we call NLP, natural language processing, and performing clustering on it. You can analyze text, find patterns in it, and make predictions. So to give a concrete example again, we could define a finer category, finer subcategorization of the store, because like health and fitness is too broad. So we could, using these NLP techniques, define what we call app DNA. Last example, but we could give many more, and I told you I don't want to bore you to death, so I'll stick to this one, is embeddings. Embeddings is a method that you can use to turn any object into a set of numbers. And once you have a set of numbers, you can put them on a map. And once you have a map, you can do many things. You can cluster things together, you can see what's around one object, and you can also easily retrieve them based on some properties. This was AI back then, and something that was not AI was, and that was still a thing already in early 2022, was ChatGPT-2. Many of you in the room, I guess, were not familiar with GPT-2 in early 2022 because back then it was bad. In the data science community, we were aware of it because it was kind of perceived for what was, when you compare to what was before. But if you want to have a look, this is just like using ChatGPT-2, asking a regular ASO question, like how can I improve my app's ranking for the keyword photo editor on the App Store? And then you would get a reply that the first words might look sensible, but then it all goes bad. So improving the ranking for a photo editor keyword mostly means having more photo editing in the app, so the keyword becomes more like the app itself. And then it starts to ramble and go on the chain of character. To be honest, this was already impressive. When we saw that, we said, okay, there is potential, but they are still far away. They need to innovate. So maybe in a couple years, in 10 years, you can have something really groundbreaking. It turns out that it was a couple of months later that they came up with that. So here we're doing it with ChatGPT 5.1 because it's the current version. But to be fair, with ChatGPT 3, you would already have some sensible results. And I think all of you already tried and have seen this kind of behavior where it can actually give you some good insights. What's crazy here is that actually they didn't innovate on anything. They just took the bet of, let's stick to what we have and make it 100 times bigger and maybe it's going to work. Usually this doesn't work, but it turns out that it did. And just like a matter of scale, made it so that now it's really amazing. But it didn't stop there. They did a lot of stuff since late 2022, which was, we can call that the ChatGPT moment. Like this is when ChatGPT broke the news, actually, when everybody, even your mom and your dad, know what AI is. And to them, AI is just like LLM. This is just like a mix in their head. But a lot has happened since. The model itself is not that much better. It got improved. But what really improved and changed everything is that it's now better integrated. The first thing that happened is 2023, where there was RAG that was implemented. So now you can give much more context to an LLM, not just within the prompt, but you can give it a whole data set of elements that it can go around and pick and give more context, and then it can trace back. So it can say, oh, this is the source that I use, this is the source that I use. This was the first time that we could really see some business applications of AI, and even in 2023, you could see AI/LLM talks at APS and the likes. Another big breakthrough, which was last year, let's say, is multimodal AI. So now it's not only, since 2024, it's not only text to text, which was already cool but limited. Now it's any type of input and any type of output. This means image, sound, and maybe, and most importantly, web pages. It can read web pages and then spit out an image or a text. This makes the scope of possible use cases in business much bigger. And lastly, and this is basically this year, is AI agents. So now that you have many, many other apps and services that offer MCP, now you have LLMs that can take actions. And this could be groundbreaking. If you stick to AI agent singular, it's already great. You can automate a lot of stuff. What we call the agentic revolution is if you have several agents and they talk to each other and they take action with each other. This could really change everything. So far, we are not seeing it, but I'm willing to bet that in 2026, you're going to see much more results of what works and doesn't work for multi-agents framework. So with that being said, having given the context, I'm going to hand back the pointer to Simon.
So I hope you memorized everything, because no, I'm not going to quiz you. I'm just going to talk about what app stores have been doing. So the first AI feature that was sort of clearly stated as such and introduced this year in the Apple App Store was App Store tags. So just a little improvement in telling you a bit more about an app and its category. From a user perspective, I want to be very clear. it's quite likely the benefits are somewhat limited. By show of hand, has anyone started tapping on an App Store tag when opening the App Store? Okay, so not even for. It's what I would say you should actually start doing if you're in this room, because if you're in this room, you're probably working with an app. And what's interesting about these App Store tags, it's that they're a signal for how Apple is starting to process information about your app and starting to sort information about your app with what it can learn. Concrete example, for years you've heard from ASO people like myself that Apple does not index the text in the long description. Tags might be influenced by what's in the long description. They might be inferred, so there's no guarantee, but these are at least a new piece of information that is being generated by Apple about the apps that are in the App Store. And so you don't, like, this is not something that I expect is going to suddenly start boosting your impressions or improving your rankings, improving your conversion rates. But they're interesting to monitor because they're signals that might play a role further down the line. Another application we saw this year was review summaries. And here, I think, again, it's kind of mixed situations. On the merit of the feature, telling you now, if you want to know what's inside an app's reviews, you don't have to start reading all of them or just trust that luck is going to give you the most helpful ones. You have the review summary instead. The idea is clearly consumer oriented, but in practice, I do think, again, the result is more valuable for developers and consumers because of two things. One, if I don't magnify them, I don't know how many people would be able to clearly say, hey, I know it's right here. I will go take the time to read it. So the UI is not playing in favor of these summaries right now. The second thing is that the content tends to be quite broad. I'm just going to read here. Users say the app is calming and recommended for anyone seeking a mental, physical, or emotional break. They appreciate the sleep stories and soothing voices. If you can't spot the app icon at the top, which app is this? Any guess? Calm? Could it be just Calm, or could it be... Who could it be? Headspace? It is Calm, but the point is here, it's very generic in what it says. It also doesn't tell you exactly what's going to be for you inside this app, or it doesn't tell you, oh, there's a big red flag. So for developers, it's worth checking, because if you're Calm and you're if you're working for Calm and your screenshots right now don't show anything about sleep stories, for instance, you might be missing an opportunity to improve conversion. But on the other hand, for users, it's going to be a lot of thanks, Captain Obvious. And so in here, I really insist on the fact that these AI features that we're seeing in the store right now, they're kind of having this weird situation where they're meant to show users AI is being used, even though the applications are quite weak. Also, if you remember the timeline that Benoît showed you, these are basically generated through, at best, RAG. It's 2023 technology. It's not like super advanced AI. Maybe the one advanced AI feature we're seeing coming out of the store publishers, and specifically from Google Play, is this new feature they've announced called Sidekick. Because here what's really impressive is that, so Sidekick is going to work as an overlay inside games, and you'll have a button to start Gemini Live and essentially have Gemini be able to view the content on your screen while you're playing and start generating comments, including tips, including just like information to potentially help you play. So now we're really into multimodal AI. Problem, it's not in the App Store. It's not in the Play Store. It's just further down the line. So at this point, we can ask the question, is there really AI in ASO? Like, is there anything useful out of it? And that's when we need to talk about search, because I think for the past 5 years, a lot of ASO focus has shifted from keywords to creatives, because a lot of the performance would come more from creative optimization. What we're seeing now is there are changes that are coming to search that might be significant and that need to be monitored. The first one was iOS 18.1, when Apple started the promise of search the way you talk. At AppTweak, we have an algorithm change detector feature where we try to kind of observe based on how many apps change position in rankings in search results every day. We try to spot if large amounts change, and we can say there's been an algorithm change. When Apple released iOS 18.1, we did see something, so it was a signal. What I want to talk about, though, is this one right here, because in June this year, in the US, we saw the most significant algorithm change we've ever detected, and by a mile. Like, usually we say that any anomaly score above 3 means there's an algorithm change. The score we detected was 29. So what happened? I took just 3 keywords to try and illustrate what happened. VPN LAT being a branded keyword. What we see is that the brand that owns the keyword did not see any change, but the competitors started being reshuffled. And suddenly it was not just all about every app that would just start by calling itself VPN, and there was more diversity. For me, the most interesting cases were bacon, and not just because I love it, but rather because bacon is an interesting kind of keyword, because you have a bacon game and you have a bacon app. And so it's kind of double branded in practice. And what I observed here was that outside of the bacon game that was ranking #1 before the algorithm change, most of the top 10 results were purely about the bacon app and its competitors. After the change, what I observed was that we started seeing more diversity. Some of the results would start showing more games related to the bacon game, not just be, okay, we have one game here, but after that it should be all apps. And with college, which is a purely generic keyword this time, we kind of saw the same trend of 2 different intent being available. One that was related to students in the US looking for information for higher education, and the other being social media for college students in the US. And again, there was this situation where the rankings were very stable and very much geared towards one dominant intent and a secondary intent that would be quite further down the line. And suddenly, with a new algorithm, we passed at that point where there was a lot more of diversity in the top results that were being presented. So, one word of caution, this change happened in the US. When you look at non-English speaking countries, the change was still noticed, but much smaller. So it shows to us that at this point, algorithm changes are probably linked to either languages or maybe to models, to AI models. So it's a change that is happening, and that shows mostly that we're switching from an era where keywords would be the dominant thing to now we're talking about intent. There were also questions and a lot of debate on LinkedIn about, has Apple started indexing keywords that are in screenshots of your apps? The answer that I can give you is, personally, I don't know. I don't have evidence of that. I do think that even if they don't, it's a good thing to assume they do, simply because it will nudge you to actually make sure you speak the way your users talk in your screenshots, and usually that helps conversion. But for me, this is when we kind of get to also what happened with Google, because this September, Google released something called guided search. Again, only in the US or only in English-speaking countries. So what is guided search? It's the idea that if I search for fighting games, I'm going to get sort of a pre-sorted answer, kind of asking in a different or showing as if I was meant to be asked, did you mean arcade fighting games? Did you mean beat them up games? Did you mean other intent? And you have this preview of these results, which are actually just previews of search results you can get to if you expand the result. And that, to me, shows kind of a different way of doing what Apple is doing, or maybe Apple is doing a less subtle way of, or less user-friendly way of the same thing. But it's that situation where now, when a keyword is searched, the algorithm is starting to try and identify an intent. And if it understands there can be more than one, it understands it needs to show you results that relate to more than one intent. And this is a part where basically, if you've been doing ASO for several years, the logic you've probably followed was the idea of, I just need to have my metadata match the keyword that a user I want to acquire is going to be typing for. And the idea was the user will figure out which keyword they want to type for. I just have to match that. Now this is what we're dealing with. It's a situation where the user is now turning to different tools, and here we don't know exactly which one. Guided search is very new. The algorithm change that Apple did, we don't know the exact impact of it in terms of how people download in the App Store. Some people might tell you, oh, now when I'm thinking about downloading a new app, I go to ChatGPT, ask for recommendations. Some people might be checking reviews on Reddit. So there's a lot of situations where here the new era is when you have an intent for downloading an app, you're still going to need to specify it first. And then you'll go into the search and you'll either go straight to let me search for a brand, or you'll start searching for a feature or for some content. And for developers, that means that you need to have a default page that match these branded search kind of situations. But you also need to have custom pages for all the other different personas. So the game has gotten more complex, and that's probably what AI is starting to do now. It's this switch from a world where we just deal in keyword matching and the goal is to be seen, to a world where now we need to see that what we're dealing with is intent matching and the goal is to be found. So with that in mind, the problem is the store situation is in flux. We know changes are happening. There's no clear ownership of, oh, it's going to do it well. We have multiple options to deal with. And of course, the challenge when you work at AppTweak is to say, well, we can't just wait for Apple and Google to give us finished products. We need to adapt. And that's why we want to also talk about Atlas AI, because it's been this intelligence layer that we've been building for the past 5 years, I would say. And we've been dealing with this problem of intent rather than just keyword for a little while. So we're going to switch again, but you'll see us talk about both things. But this was Atlas AI in the very beginning.
It was actually just Atlas, and then the AI came in a bit later, but I'm going to explain, go through this. So yeah, indeed, the fact that the idea that intent is key, we knew it for a while, and we knew that the stores were not doing enough. So we figured that, okay, let's build something that tries to map intent, tries to map search intent to services, so mapping keyword and apps. This is where we use traditional AI techniques, the one I presented from 2022, and this is no LLM world. We could still build a lot of really good stuff. So basically using the signal from search results, so we have many keywords that we track on a daily basis, so it's a lot of data points. We can compute embeddings of apps and of keywords, and then you can put them on a map. The map here is 2 dimensions, the actual map is 100 dimensions, but somehow this was a bit easier to show. But we already saw that this was promising, and it was actually kind of reverse engineering the logic of the store. A good example of that is that the human eye could already see that running and run are two completely different intents in the store, which might not be intuitive. If you look at running, it's only apps that are about running outside, even though in the title it's written run, 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 not running. And when you search for run, it's more going to be like games. And some of them don't even have run in the title, like Subway Surfers. So just doing this, we're able to, in this map, already figure out that run and run games would be on one side, and running tracker would be on the other side. Going back to the idea of this map can be useful for retrieval, it allowed us to, for example, suggest if you're an app that is on this side of the map, we can suggest relevant ways for you in terms of intent, run and run games, but we won't suggest to you to add running in your metadata, which is already useful. This was in a non-LLM world, but then LLM became useful to us. This is the first time we actually integrated LLMs into Atlas, which is where it started to be Atlas AI. The point is not to have LLM replace the entire logic. The point is to integrate, and this is really going to be the difference. So to give a bit more detail on the story of taxonomy, once we had this data set of like 5 million or maybe 5 million apps, let's say, with 100 dimension embeddings, we are data scientists. We could not be held back from doing clustering. And when we did clustering, we could also color them by the store category. And this, we were super glad with that. First of all, it showed that our Atlas map was good because the colors are blended together. And it makes sense that the search instance of app of the same category will be the same. So you are in the same place of the map. But, and even more interesting, we can see that the clusters can be redefined in sub-clusters. So looking at travel and looking into more detail, we can see that there is a cluster for finer intents that we can then separate into what we call the app DNAs. It turned out that the process of defining this list of app DNAs was really tedious. It was kind of manual. You had to look at the cluster, look at the apps and say, okay, I can give it a name. It's going to be maps and navigation. This is where LLM came in. The first time that we used LLM, it was this process of manually having a look, and you need a human feeling for what name can I assign to this group of apps. This is the first time LLM were really useful. The other moment where they were useful is when you have a new app that is not yet on the map, how can you assign it to a new app DNA? And it turned out that LLMs were super good at that. So if we give it the info of search results, you back that up with data, and the metadata of the app, the other competitors and whatever, then you can have a really accurate prediction of where you would be in terms of app DNA. So this is the first example of what we would call a workflow. You integrate LLMs into a static workflow, and we could already be seeing really good results. Can let Simon explain another example of how he's using workflows?
Yeah, because so far we've kind of told you what we've built, but there's also situations where you might be interested in building yourself. So I'm going to tell you about something I did about maybe a month ago. One thing I do with AppTweak's clients at times is I'm asked to help kind of give a very quick view of what they're doing well or not well. And one of the main things I need to scan when I do that is the metadata they're using any good? And so that means I actually have a clear input. I need to know their metadata. By the way, the keyword field of ChatGPT is completely fictional. They're not a client. It's just an example anyone can understand. But from that metadata, what I need to do is essentially assess how many keywords are useful, where do they rank, and how many downloads can we say we're getting organically thanks to these keywords. And so I have essentially a very clear and formatted input and a very clear and formatted output. And so that's the kind of situation where if you're already clear on your intentions, on something you need to have that is custom to your work, but you're experts and you know what you want, you can learn to vibe code essentially. So this took me about 2 days of work, not just 48 hours, but like throughout a couple weeks to build. It's probably not even the easiest vibe coding tool that I use. It's NA10. It's very good for tech people. I think for marketing people, there's maybe some easier entry-level ones. But essentially, if you're thinking, well, I want to build my own stuff, I know what output I need, and I know the input, and I don't need it to be evolutive. I don't need it to be probabilistic. I just need something that will always spit out the same type of answer and that I can trust. Then you can really invest in building your own workflows. And sometimes what you only need is an API access, because what you'll want is mix your knowledge with some data. And so that's what I did here. And I won't do a live demo of this workflow, mainly because I don't want to risk the internet breaking. But essentially, if you're an AppTweak client or if you're an ASO tool client that provides you with an API, look for API credits you can start using to build your own workflows, because that can help you speed up. Personally, with just the little example here, I went from having to build combinations myself, which took 1 or 2 hours, and then putting them in AppTweak, getting my results, which would be a bit fast, but still tedious because it was, I need to copy paste some stuff, etc. Now it takes 2 minutes. And that's something anyone who's able to dedicate a bit of time and have the proper data sources can start building. The one weak point is this means it's for experts who know what they want and who know how to say there's a defined input and there's a defined output. And so while I was doing this little thing, and I was very proud of my little programming, Benoît was working on something a bit bigger, because he said, well, we're also dealing with Apple ads. And with Apple ads, you have a lot of people who are less experts and who need to still find guidance on how they can make decisions on their app campaigns. So I'll let you explain a bit like what happened over there.
Yeah, so as we explained, we were starting to use a lot of AI workflows, and it turned out that it was great for us. And we had one thing that we thought we could use, leverage AI workflows once again. We've been providing a lot of AI scans, of Apple ad scan to clients, so looking at the data, leveraging our own knowledge to give a scan of the account and give action points. We felt like this could be automated with a workflow. So looking at a workflow similar to what Simon was showing, we could have a static workflow where we take where we take inputs, and then we give maybe like a large PDF of the report. But we felt this was not enough because this would be missing out a big part of what makes LLM so great, which is the flexibility. It's really amazing to have something that can understand, that has this finesse to understand, and where if the answer is not good, you can always go back and say, no, actually do it this way. So we wanted to actually build more like an LLM layer where you can have actually build basically a chatbot that would still be an Apple Ads strategy. So this is where we built Ad Agent. As a side note, my pet peeve is giving the wrong pronouns, and it's not a he, it's not a she, it's an it. And I think this is really important. We gave it a boring name. I mean, marketing want me to say generic name, but it's a boring name, Ad Agent. But it's on purpose. Like, it's not a human. It's going to behave kind of like it. It's going to be a chatbot. But at the end of the day, they don't reason the same way as us. They do some tasks super well. They do some other tasks not as good as us. So it is really an it. It is a bot, but that can already be great. And then you have humans in the loop if you need extra help from humans. But let's not mix them up. That was end of the rant. To explain a bit more what is into it. So as I said, this is a LLM layer to offer like the flexibility when you're doing the analysis. There were 3 pillars to how we approach this, like the 3 main challenges that we had to overcome. The first one was giving it knowledge. So for this, the good part is that we could leverage multimodal AI, because there is a lot, like we could use RAG, multimodal AI, and everything that I shown before, because there is a lot of content regarding Apple Ads out there, whether it's provided by Apple themselves or by ourselves. We did webinars, we have internal content that we share to onboarding or whatever. We could pull it all together and have it summarized by AI, so that we have one robust knowledge base of everything you need to know about Apple Ads. Whether it's like official Apple Ads strategy or AppTweak's own twists, everything is summarized in just one place. This was also enriched with Atlas AI. So we have a data set with embeddings, with intents and cluster. This was also used to enrich the knowledge database. The other pillar is the data. So we managed to connect this bot to Apple Ads campaign data. And this really was the key. When you talk about data, you need 3 things. You need quality, quantity, and accessibility. Quality and quantity is not that hard. Like, you have an Apple Ads console, it's easy. The accessibility is the hard part for a bot. It's not that easy for a bot to get access to the right data at the right time. So this was the challenge that we had to overcome. And once this hurdle was finished with, now we were seeing results.
And to be clear, when you say accessibility, it's also preventing it from access other sources, right?
Exactly. And it was also security in that sense. It's not going to be a problem for all type of bots. For this one, it was a big problem because we're talking about integration data. So we had to make 100% sure that this bot is only sticking and will never know anything else than the client data in question. With that, the last piece of the puzzle was teaching the AI to shut up, because sometimes they are really good at pretending that they know, and they will just fill in the gaps.
They're politicians.
Yeah, I mean, actually, at some point we even realized that, so we have this knowledge base, we forgot to actually plug it in, and we were seeing results, and it was a bit off, but we didn't realize from the get-go, because even naturally, the AI knows enough about Apple Ads to go by and pretend that it knows. So it's really like this prompt engineering and also data access that was key to make sure that when the AI doesn't know or can't answer, can't access the data or doesn't have the info in the knowledge, teaching the AI to say, I don't know. Like, it's really the key. You want an AI that says, I don't know, when it doesn't know. With that being said, we can move on to the final words.
Yeah. So what you need to remember from today, in terms of AI for App Store marketing, stores are in the process of reorganizing their content, generating new information out of the content they have. And that whole process is in progress. It's not over. It's not done. It's something that also puts a bit of uncertainty, because we're now facing that situation of saying, if you remember the slide about how user intent is now in this step where there's research before the intent is specified, we're having to figure out that question of, are intents being researched inside the App Store, inside the Play Store, or outside? And so that's a challenge for everyone. And for now, the best thing you can do is look for new sources of data, while also looking for how the data you have can be organized towards that situation. It also means that when you're going to be working with service providers, if you know exactly what you want, you can look for how you can get their data to pour into your own workflows. On the other hand, if you know you need something more flexible, something that can also help you learn what's changing, you want them to give you an agent. And so that's going to help you have that whole situation covered. At the same time, it's not like you're building for AI. Like, I think you know more than I do about that.
Yeah, on my end, the main takeaways here is that at the end of the day, AI is huge. Whether we talk about the traditional AI that are presented at first or the new AI LLMs, it's huge, but it's not going to be a differentiator by itself. And when we were building features, we found that every time when the feature actually worked is because we were able to feed data. Data is still the star of the show, and context too, like your expertise. The LLMs, they're really smart, but they don't know as much about the industry as you do. So you need to feed them with context as much as you can. Another point is to not forget about humans in the loop. You're not building just for AIs. At the end of the day, you have humans using your product, using your platform, and you always need to have in mind the user intent, the persona. This is still going to be key. And once you have that, we reach the last point, is that once you have the intent and the use case, make your AI stick to it. It's really crucial to find a way to make an AI that sticks to what you have to, and this is when you're going to have something that actually is a game changer.
That's going to be it for us today, at least in terms of just talking to you guys in this setting. We want to have conversations. So if anyone just wants to save the slides, you can scan the QR code, of course. But you're also more than welcome to come talk to us if you want to hear from Benoît about how we made sure that we could trust AI to do math properly and not just invent results. He has some great insights. And hopefully, yeah, come speak with us for information on what we do, but also for use cases that you're investigating yourselves and how we can work together on them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.